Welcome back to the homestead on a beautiful rainy day. We're back on the CF Moto here, doing the next stage of our spring service, if you will. What we're going to do in this video is we're going to drain and refill both the front and rear differential, and we're going to check all of the CV shafts, just kind of give it an overall visual. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull our drain plugs, and then we're going to walk around, look everything over, and explain to you what we're doing. We will grease all the fittings, and then we'll fill the front and rear differential. So underneath here on the back, kind of in a precarious, scary spot, is the drain plug. And we get our drain pan under it, pull our plug out, and you'll see there's very little bit of metal shavings on that plug. Maybe if you look at it sideways, you'll see the hill, but most of that hill is oil, actually, not metal. So if we dab it off, you see just a little bit right there. It's not bad. As I've mentioned in the oil change videos, we don't worry too much unless we start seeing actual pieces of metal. The gray sludge-looking stuff is just normal wear. Now, if you're lucky enough to have two drain pans, you get the front drain plug out too while you're at it.
This one at least has some protection. The rear one on this, we're a little disappointed with the location. It is really kind of where you could scrape it right off on a rock, but so far so good.
We keep saying we're going to build something over it, but I guess until we break the first differential, we won't worry about it. Now these, you don't have to worry so much about how much to put back in, and we'll show you that when we get there. I'm going to set that plug right there, so when I can't find it, you guys can remind me where I put it. Okay, so while those are draining, if you want to come around over my shoulder, I can show you what we're going to be doing here. Before we took the tires off, we checked for play in the bearings and everything like that. So now what we're doing is we're just making sure our axle nuts are tight, things don't look loose there. Our rotors aren't too chewed up. We're looking through this access hole and seeing how much pad is left on the inside. In our case, we got a lot of pad. We're just looking for obvious leaks, cracks, breaks, broken springs, leaking shocks. Looking for torn CV boots. Usually those will show up because there'll be oil or grease slung everywhere. But we're just looking those over. We're turning the shaft. You see everything turns good, and we can see that joint. And yeah, that's kind of what we're going to do. We're going to walk around. Again, we're going to check this boot here. We don't see any wet or any grease. Same here. And no obvious leaks or cracks or breaks. We have checked our brake pads on this one. And there are some what looks to be little metal tabs there that probably will squeal when they get down. But we're just looking up in there. We're checking radiator leaks. We see a little bit of damp on the bottom of that radiator, but I have a feeling that's where I pressure washed it. And then we're going to go around to the back. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to look over all the electrical. We don't see any real problems there. No leaks on the shock. Brake pads on this one, if you look down in here, have about 1/4 inch of pad left. So we're happy there. No tears in the CV shaft, boots. So now what we're going to do is we're going to give Sue the flashlight. And I'm going to grease the rear of this while things are draining. So as you can see, we've cleaned the face of that off, and we've exposed that little ball, which is the most important part. You can clean the whole fitting off, but the most important part is not to push any dirt in through that ball into the fitting. We're just going to go ahead and snap that on there. And we're going to pump until we see good grease with no water come out. Like in our case, it's coming out right here. I'm going to take our rag. I like to just clean up some of my excess on this just because it gets everywhere if you don't. this bottom one. If we can figure out how. This looks like it's just as much of a problem with the tire off. I'm just going to bend that shield out of the way. There we go. Now I'm going to bend the shield back. Do both sides of our lower A-frame. Another sway bar. And we'll go around and repeat the process. Sway bar, and we're out of grease. For those of you who don't know how to change grease in a grease gun, you're going to pull this thing out, lock it. Careful that it's sharp in there where you've taken the cover off the old new tube, or the old tube, whatever tube that is. And you take your grease, pop the plastic cap off, stick it down in that way, pull the metal cover off. And you want to screw your top on, but not completely tight because we want to get the air out of it. And we turn this so that it falls back up in there like that. And we pump until we get grease. Which in our case, I was going to say it didn't take long, but there we go. And then you tighten this back up. That's how you change tube grease. Pretty impressed. We're not getting any water out of this. Of course, we only found a little deep water on our first couple rides of this season. All right, now you're going to do the front. And the front's pretty much the same way. There is a upper and lower control arm, or A-arm I guess you'd call it, not a control arm. And they have a grease fitting right there. And that's about it. They don't grease the ball joints on these. Bring it around here. Grab my rag and do the other side. Ratchet. We're going to put our drain plug back in. And there's a hole in the skid plate for it. And if you look right through here of the camera, you can probably see the plug going in. And this is sort of that same thing as the drain plugs. You just kind of want to snug it up. I mean, I got a pretty long ratchet, so you don't want to break anything. And we're going to come back to the fill plug. We'll get both drain plugs in so we don't forget it. And you always want to start them by hand. Never want to start your drain plugs, lug nuts, anything with a tool. In case you've got it cross-threaded, you won't feel it. It should go all the way in to the point of bottoming out by hand. Alright, so what we're going to do now is right here is our fill plug on the rear. And I can't remember if I can get in here. I think I can on this one without a funnel. So we're just going to fill it until it runs out. I think we got it. Maybe. I'm going to give it just a touch more to make sure. Oh yeah. So you can see it running out. So we're going to put our fill plug in, tighten that up, and go around to the front. So let's go to the front. This one I think it's going to be easier if we let it down about a foot. So I don't have the light, but it's right here. Probably have to come up around the axle. So the fill plug on the front end is right there. So we're going to go ahead and take that out. And we're going to fill this up. And this is a lot easier without the tires on it, I can say that. And the front end, you know, you can use your own judgment. It may not make sense to change it every oil change for you. But for us, it's really easy access. And gear oil is really cheap. And you can see we used 0.6 for the transmission. Sue filled this, and this is what's left in a quart. So we're probably going to use about 2 quarts to do this whole project. So that's probably like $6 or $7 in gear oil with that. Now, Sue's had really good luck pouring this from one jug to the other without making a mess, so I'm going to dump it all over the freezer. See? I told you I was going to dump it all over the freezer.
I almost told you to slow down. I should have.
The real question is, how many of you saw that? Like, stop, stop. I think one of these days we're going to invest in one of those pumps that goes on a 5-gallon bucket. We're going to buy our gear oil by the 5-gallon bucket because it would be a lot easier, especially for filling the front rear ends in trucks and stuff like that. But I'm going to clean up my mess and move the fill this. Alright, so this is going to be really hard for you guys to see while I do it. Because what I end up doing is I put my finger over the hole and I put a snoodle in the hole in the front end, and then I just squeeze till I see gear oil run out. And the front end, you got to be a little careful because the air will come back out and you'll think it's full and it's really not. You get to squeeze it in there slow. All right, so you see, it seemed like we put a lot in, but it's still right there. So the front end holds very little. I'm gonna grab the light and just verify it really is full. Actually, it looks like it might could take a little bit more. Like I say, it can be very deceiving because the gear oil can form over the fill hole because of the air trying to escape. But if you come in and take a look at that, you can clearly see it's actually full right to the top now. So we're going to go ahead and put our plug in. And that's it. The front and rear end are now have new gear oil in them. The machine's been checked over. We've greased all the grease fittings. So I think what we're going to do now is we're going to wrap this video up, and in the next series we're probably going to check the spark arrestor. So if you look at the maintenance part of your manual, one of the things it'll tell you to do is check the spark arrestor periodically to make sure it's not sooted up and plugged. So we'll bring you back, we'll do that. And then I think we'll bring you back and we'll take the belt apart, check the belt, blow the clutches out, etc., etc. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.